Welcome back. I'm Bill Boggs in for Robin Leach. Our guest is Leslie Uggams. She starred on Broadway in such hit shows as Hallelujah Baby, for which she won a Tony Award, Anything Goes, Blues in the Night, and Jerry Herman's hit musical Jerry's Girls. And the clip you just saw is from her appearance right now at Rainbow and Stars. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Pleasure to see you again.
Yes.
Since we last met, you've actually moved from California back to New York.
Back home
from LA
to New York
back
City.
to New York.
That's right.
So you missed 6 federal disasters in the last 2 years.
Yes. Thank you very much.
What's the experience been like for you of working at Rainbow and Stars with your friend Erwin Drake's music and the new CD? I mean, you're in the music now.
I'm in,
Big.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's been a great experience because, number one, this is a different kind of show that I'm doing. It really is a lot about my life. And a lot of people remember me from Mitch Miller. But before there was a Mitch, there
that was a
the
sing-along with Mitch?
Sing-along with Mitch.
Yes.
But I had a life at the Apollo, and my life went on till the time I was 16. I played the Apollo Theater. So that I talk about some of the great people I work with. I mean, I could do 7 hours about who I work with.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I mean, the Apollo Theater is on 125th Street in Harlem.
Yes.
It has been a seminal place for great black performers.
Yes,
I remember once when I was in college, I said, I got to go to this place. I went up and I saw Nancy Wilson and Cannonball
That's
Adderley
right.
on stage at
That's
the Apollo
right.
Theater. It was wonderful. Now, you were there, and you were so good, they wouldn't let you off the stage. You had Dinah Washington putting her arms around you when you were 7 or 8. Ella Fitzgerald. What do you remember about those women?
Well, what I remember about Ella is that Ella was very motherly with me.
She seems motherly.
Very, very motherly. She was very quiet, very shy, loved food.
What I was going to ask my next question, actually. What kind of food would they haul in backstage?
There was always
at the Apollo?
fried chicken. There was always potato salad.
Right.
There was always watermelons, relatives coming in, constantly bringing food. And I was like this, you know, I was real skinny. And she'd say to my mother, you know, she's not eating enough. You got to feed her more. So she was constantly dragging us into the dressing room. I mean, we were thrilled to go.
Right, sure.
You know, right, Ella Fitzgerald, whatever you say, Ella, you know.
7 years old when you made your first appearance. Nine. Excuse me, 9 years old.
Yeah.
When did you first know that you had something special in here, this special voice?
When I was about 5, I sang very early in my life. In fact, my mother said I sang at 3, that Frank Sinatra's record came on, and I started singing with him, and she was like amazed. But when I was like 5, there was a dear friend of my mother and father's who was a singer herself and used to play at a little club downtown.
Who was that?
Her name was Gwendolyn Griffin.
Right.
And she was compared to Nellie Lutcher, who was a big star in the black community. And she said to my parents, she said, no, I think she's got talent. So she used to drag me around to all these auditions. At that time, there were a lot of television shows for kids.
Right.
So I would do all these little kiddie shows. And that's how I started.
Like talent type shows?
Yes.
Or just performing type shows?
In fact, Connie Francis and I were on a show called Star Time.
Okay.
And it was like the Milton Berle show for little kids.
What do you remember about Connie Francis as a little kid? I mean, she had that tremendous voice.
Connie
still has an excellent voice.
Yes, but Connie played the accordion. She used to sing and play the accordion.
Very unusual. You don't see a lot of female accordion players.
No, and eventually, when she started doing more, her father stopped her playing the accordion.
Drop that accordion and get that voice
just
up.
Sing.
Where the boys are.
Yes, you know.
So, but as a kid doing that, what does it mean really to have an early sense of your talent? Did you have a natural pitch?
Yes.
Just a good sounding voice?
I had a natural pitch, and I also had a big voice for this little skinny girl. And people were always amazed what came out because I was so little, and they go, how could that voice be coming out of this little girl?
There was something passing through. How about Dinah Washington, another mentor at the time?
Dinah she and I were very close. She embraced my mother and I, and she treated me like her little goddaughter. And so we spent a lot of time with Dinah, not only on the stage, but off the stage as well. We spent a lot of time going to her apartment, but she was very warm. And I remember, one situation where I told a joke to Aunt Dinah, and I was expecting this big laugh, and she didn't laugh, and she said, always remember, you are a lady. And I was like, what did I say?
Oh, no. Well, it's amazing the stuff that sticks with you. Here you are, you know, a couple decades later.
And I'll never forget
and you
that.
remember that? I want to flash forward just a little bit. because in your life you've been with some people who some have passed on. For example, Groucho Marx.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you work with Groucho Marx or not, but in 1968, you won a Tony for Hallelujah Baby.
Yes.
And Groucho Marx was on stage doing the presentation. What happened?
He never stopped talking, and he just kept going on and doing a routine and doing a routine, and forgot about the nominees. Then he finally got to the nominees, and then when he finally said my name, I was like, I'm so excited about this, and I finally rushed up the steps and they presented me with my Tony, and I went to thank everybody, and because he had talked so long, they had to break for a commercial, and I never got to say thank you or make an acceptance speech.
We'll take a break now. We're not taking a break. You want to thank people?
Yes, I want to thank Comden and Green for those wonderful lyrics, Arthur Lawrence for that book, Irene Sharaff for those costumes, Kevin Carlisle for the choreography, and of course, my mom and dad. You always thank your mom and dad.
That's right. I want to thank Groucho Marx for that thing I wear at Halloween all the time with the nose and the mustache under it like that. Now, let's go back to Mitch a little bit, because I remember my aunt and uncle, my Aunt Eve and Uncle John, loved the Mitch Miller show. They loved the sing-along show, and they loved you at the time. That was a totally different era. We're talking about in the 60s, right, with Mitch Miller. The sing-along show, you turn on the TV, little bouncing ball. Boy, you couldn't do that now.
No.
I don't even think the Senior Citizen Channel would put that on. And things have changed. What do you remember about working with Mitch?
He was a perfectionist. We got along great. We did everything in the recording studio. We were the first show that ever did lip sync.
Total on a prime basis.
Show. Because Mitch wanted the sound that people heard when they played the LP to be the same sound when we did the television show.
Do you see Mitch Miller at all? Do you
He's my neighbor.
You know, it's funny because I saw him the other day at Columbus Circle waiting for a
bus.
Waiting for the bus.
Yes.
That's right. And I was going to go and say hi, Mitch, because I've interviewed him a few times. But he was rooting. You know that feeling when you're rooting for a token?
Yes.
And the bus was coming. I thought, if I say hi to Mitch, he's not going to get the token.
And he'll miss the bus. And he'll hate you.
He's not going to like that too much. So he's your neighbor now,
He's my neighbor. And recently I just presented him with an award from CORE organization.
That you have founded.
Yes, I've been a part of CORE, and they presented me with an award, and this year we presented him with an award because people didn't realize that they had Mitch took a lot of heat because I was on that show. They didn't want me on the show. Yeah. The South would not show the show, and the network and the sponsors were constantly saying to Mitch, "What does she have to? Does she have to be on every week then? Or, well, does she have to touch the sing-along men?" Because they wanted to do a thing where they could isolate me.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't, they could cut it out like they did with Lena years ago when she was doing movies. And he said, nope, no.
That's the way it's going to be.
It's this way it's going to be, and if you're going to take the show off, then you take the show off. But she's part of the family.
He stood up.
He stood up.
Well, look, this is what we'll do. We'll take a break. We come back. A lot to talk about with Leslie Uggams, and that's what we're here for. So don't you leave. We'll be right back. Oh, there you just saw Norma Jean Darden in the kitchen with Kate. We're back with Leslie Uggams, and that's from Leslie's new CD, which is written by Erwin Drake. Painted Memories is a CD just really released, right?
Yes, it just came out a month ago, so we're very excited about it.
Let's talk for a moment about your relationship with Erwin Drake, who's written some classic songs. He wrote a show called
Her First
Roman,
yes,
which you were in.
That's right. Richard Kiley and I, we were Caesar and Cleopatra.
And how long did it run?
Not long.
Not long.
Let me put it this way. We were out of town longer than we ran in New York City.
Then you ran in New York City.
Yes.
But the show has a cult following. Miller Wright told me that people taped some shows. What's the story?
There was an underground tape that we never knew about that you could buy. And finally, a year and a half ago, two producers who like to do shows that didn't last long, that have never been recorded, approached Irvin about possibly recording this. And of course he said, yeah, I'd love it. So then they spoke to Richard. Richard said, well, if Leslie does it, and I said, well, if Richard does it. So we went into the studio and we recorded Her First Roman. Because of that, our relationship started all over again. And we started talking about Irvin writing an album, and about New York City, and a sophisticated woman who's lived a life, and that's how this all came about.
Well, it's a lovely album. I was listening to it this afternoon, very well produced, and you do a take on It Was a Very Good Year, which is a song that was originally in, was that originally in the Broadway show?
No, A Very Good Year was originally written for the Kingston Trio.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Irvin, he walks around with titles. He had this title, and he had not done anything with the Kingston Trio, and he went to the music publisher that you always did in those days, and he said, how come I've never done anything with the Kingston Trio? I'd like to do something with them. And the lead of the Kingston Trio came in, and Irvin in 20 minutes had written the song called A Very Good Year.
And that, by the way, is a song when I was 17.
That's right.
It's mostly associated with Sinatra. You know, it was a very
4
good
years
year.
later, he recorded it, and it became like whoosh.
It is. It's an art piece.
But he rewrote the lyrics for a woman. That's what
I did notice that. Yeah.
Yes.
Lyrics are rewritten. Let's talk about some of your work on TV. I would think, now I could be wrong, with, you know, I never talked to a guest ahead of time. I would think in your head, the pinnacle of your work on TV would have been Roots.
Yes.
Am I right or wrong?
You're right. Absolutely.
Not just because of the Emmy and the nomination and stuff like that, but because of what it signified.
Absolutely. First of all, for me and many other Afro-Americans, it was the first time that we really heard from a black man what our history was about, coming from Africa, from somebody who got the experience through his family. And that was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And of course the writing was so wonderful, and Alex Haley was just incredible to talk to, and I would talk to him all the time, and playing Kizzy.
Kizzy.
Oh, she was quite a woman, quite a woman.
I would be fascinated to hear just a little bit, Leslie Uggams, on what you heard from people, and may still hear from people, because of your participation in Roots.
Well, you know, it's like people like Bow, because the Kizzy character was one of the characters that people really loved, besides Kunta Kinte and Chicken George. And they liked the strength about her, and how she loved the sun, but the best scene they loved is when I spit in the cup. After all those years of what this woman who was supposed to be my best friend, what she did, and finally, many years later, she gets this woman back.
In my opinion, as a white person, I think that the Roots miniseries is one of the finest examples of television bringing a country together.
Absolutely.
We had to sit there and watch.
You know what was amazing? At that time, I was rehearsing in Las Vegas doing Guys and Dolls. And the first night it went on, you know, we watched it and everything, and it was wonderful, and we loved it. And then we went downstairs. I had to go back to rehearsal, and people were kind of looking at me. You know, I hadn't been on yet, but they were kind of, they knew I was coming on. And then the next night, we were going to watch it, and we called room service. You couldn't get room service. And then I came on. I went downstairs again, and people in the elevator, they looked at me like with different eyes, and no one was in the casino. So the next thing I know, showtimes are changing. Anne Margaret was appearing at the Hilton. She called me up and she said, Leslie, I've changed my show. She said, I'm not going on stage. Nobody's coming here. So all the shows went on a different schedule when Roots was running. It was amazing. Nothing had ever been
Was the most watched series in the history of television.
And still
both
is.
times.
Yes.
Both times it was on. Now, let's move up to 1995. We had a new series with CBS, Under One Roof.
Yes.
James Earl Jones.
Yes, and Joe Morton.
And you play mother-in-law from hell. What does that mean, Leslie? You are not the kind of person I would expect to be playing a character from hell.
Well, she's pushy. She's one of these...
How pushy is she?
Well, she's one of these mothers that has her own opinion, and she says what she thinks, and sometimes what she says offends her son-in-law, who she's not crazy about, and she tells him she's not crazy about him. And she wanted her daughter to live her life a certain way, and her daughter didn't. And the episode I'm on, they finally come to the point where the daughter, who has never really said anything, finally tells the mother, this is what I feel about it. And they finally come to an understanding. The mother explains what she felt for her daughter, and that she really loves her, and that, but she wanted more for her. And the daughter tells her, listen, I've got everything I want. I'm happy. But she's very insulting.
And this is a new series. I mean, it's
new series of James Earl Jones.
We couldn't even get a clip of it.
It just
that's
came
how new
on.
it is.
Yes. And they did 5 of them, and I hope everybody watches, because then it'll be brought back, and then I'll have a recurring role.
I hope so. And James Earl Jones, what a guy.
Oh, I did a scene with him. I was so excited.
He's like the voice of America. I often think if we were having problems with, you know, an ally or something, just put them in a room and have James Earl Jones' voice pumped in.
That's right.
Listen to me. You're going to be doing this.
Absolutely.
This is CNN. What a
And you know what?
Pipes.
He's very shy.
I know that.
Very quiet. And when we did our scene together, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. It was one of the highlights of my career.
Hey, speaking of heaven, you did a concert in the Washington Mall in front of 300,000 people.
Yes, yes.
Now,
that was a Memorial Day concert.
Reflect on what goes through your mind. And you're standing in the same spot, right, where
Yes.
Martin Luther King had spoken and Marian Anderson had performed. You have 300,000 people in front of you. What goes through your mind before you open your mouth?
Oh my gosh. Look at all these people. And Colin Powell was in the audience, you know, and this was right after, you know, the whole Gulf War thing, and of course it was the Memorial Day concert that we were doing. It was very, very exciting. Very exciting.
Now, if you started performing at age 6, and here you are now at Rainbow and Stars, do you still get nervous? Honest.
Yes.
Between you and me.
Yes.
Do you still get nervous?
Yes.
Every night at Rainbow and Stars? What can we
Yes.
do to help you with this problem? You don't need to be nervous. I don't want you to be nervous.
I always worry, are they going to like it? Is my voice going to be all right? Is everything going to go? I'm very anxious before a performance. And sometimes I say, why did I do this to myself?
Still nervous after all these years. You're not nervous now, right?
No, no, no.
Good. Neither am I.
Good.
We'll take a break. Maybe I'll get nervous now if I don't get this out. We'll be back with Leslie Uggams right after this.